Well, the first thing I do when I go into a listing, before we sit down and talk, I ask them to give me a cook's tour of their home. Mm-hmm. It's helping me develop a rapport. It's helping them see, I'm really interested and I want to know about your home. I want to know what you've done to the home. What improvements have you made? Mm-hmm. So that way, when we sit down and we can review and look at comps, mm-hmm. I'm not going into it blind, just having looked at their foyer, their living room, their kitchen, right?
Hi everybody, welcome back to another Workout Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in to another week. For this week, we have a very special guest out of our Ponte Vedra office, Priscilla Johnson. Priscilla, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to meet you finally. I know I've had a lot of instances where we've been in the same room or at the same event, but we haven't officially met each other, so very nice to meet you finally.
It's nice to have a face-to-face.
Yeah. Let's hop straight into it. You've had an impressive career in real estate. How many years have you been?
20.
20. Awesome. You specialize in luxury and new construction. Seeing from your bio, is that what you specialize in a lot of?
Right.
Yeah. I want to get an idea of what drew you to real estate.
Well, it's an interesting story. Mm-hmm. My husband, our whole marriage, which we've now been married 44 years this year,
awesome. Yeah.
encouraged me to do real estate. Yeah. He was in banking. He had mm-hmm. done commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. And so he was real familiar with what the real estate industry mm-hmm. looked like. And he kept saying, you'd be so good at it. Well, for me, I thought it was all math driven because all I could think of was those closing settlement statements mm-hmm. and then the mm-hmm. loan package.
Yeah.
And it was so overwhelming to me when we would go to a closing. Yeah. I had no idea. He would find mistakes.
You saw like a lot of his side of stuff, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, that's not my gig. I don't want to do that. Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2003. Mm-hmm. And I lost a boy student of glioblastoma, which mm-hmm. was very difficult for me. Yeah. My father passed away after 21-year battle of Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And then I was diagnosed with a breast cancer. So the music in me just kind of quieted. Yeah. I had sung professionally, mm-hmm. Most of my life. And I needed to do something. I taught voice in my home, but I needed to close the studio after all of that happened. I just didn't have it in me. Mm-hmm. So after I got through all my treatments, I said to my husband, I don't feel like opening up the voice studio again. Mm-hmm. But I've got to find something to do. The boys are growing up. They're going off to college. I can't just sit around and have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you try real estate? Look at real estate. I'm like, oh my gosh, you in this real estate, you just won't stop. And he said, I think you're perfect for it. So I said, I don't know. He said, go take the course. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. Yeah. So I said, okay, fine, I'll take the course. So I went to the course, mm-hmm. and the instructor goes, for those of you that don't like math, you'll be glad to know there's only 10 questions on the state exam that are math related. You can fail all 10 and still pass the test. I said, did my husband call you? And, so there it went. It kind of just took that fear of math away from me and that settlement statement. And then I began the course and realized, oh my gosh, there's so much to real estate that I'd forgotten about in looking for a new home, in finding a community, and mm-hmm. finding the right location, mm-hmm. All of those things that I loved. Yeah. So I just fell in love with it, and I've thrived. And after about the first year in my career, I realized that my schedule was really tough because the kids, like I said, were in high school, they mm-hmm. were playing mm-hmm. sports. I couldn't make a nail appointment that I could keep. I couldn't make a hair appointment that I could keep. I couldn't go to their games. And I said, I don't think this is working. Mm-hmm. So I had a customer. Here's Nelson's wisdom comes back at me again. Yeah. He goes, what about that guy that was with Toll Brothers that you had? He said, why don't you call him about being a side agent? I said, a side agent? I said, no, they don't have a very good reputation. I don't want to be a side agent. They're just like eye candy, and I'm not that. Yeah. So anyway, he goes, no, there's more. You can change that image. So I said, okay, I'll call Ralph. So I called him, and I talked to him. I said, you worked with me on this 1031 exchange for mm-hmm. 4 days. You saw my business approach. You saw what I do, and I'm just curious. I'm having a hard time managing my schedule. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh my gosh, Priscilla, it'd be a no-brainer. He said, I can arrange for you an interview. The rest is up to you. Yeah. So he said, but the downside is you have to work every single weekend. I said, well, I'm working every single weekend now.
Nothing new.
Right, but you get 2 designated days off.
Okay.
So for me, that was great. It was going to give me a chance to make all my appointments and schedule those sorts of things. So I started in new construction with Toll Brothers. I actually started out in the community, St. John's Forest, off of 210 and 95. And I learned the builder, I learned their plans, I learned all their mechanics of the contract, which was very different from general real estate. But you know what, Noah, it was the best thing I ever did. I didn't have any idea it was at the time. But I learned so much about real estate that I did not know. I didn't know how community was laid out. I really didn't understand how to read a survey. Yeah. You know, they teach you certain things in the course, but until you get in the field, you don't really know. So it had also helped me learn all the communities within the area of Jacksonville, not just St. Johns County, because our business model was that we had to go out and learn what builders were doing what better than the others. So it taught me all these communities. Yeah. So it helped me really in invaluable ways. And, you know, I was successful with them. I loved doing what I was doing. I actually took a position down in Boca, where I commuted between here and Jacksonville, and sold that community out. And I said, you know what, I don't think I want to go back into site work, because now I've developed these farms. Yeah. I used to beg realtors when they would come to us. I'm like, you have this opportunity, because we were selling Nocatee. You have this opportunity to farm Nocatee, and you're not doing it. I can sell it one time, but you can sell it over and over and over. Yeah. Well, I realized so many agents didn't capitalize on that. They might bring 1 client, maybe 2, but they didn't get what I was saying about farming. So I thought, you know what? I've sold all these homes in Nocatee. I've sold all these homes in St. John's Forest. I've sold all these homes that Toll Brothers does everywhere. Yeah. I've got a farm. And plus I've got my community that I was entrenched in, being PTO president and a room mom and a team mom and a voice teacher. I knew my community. Yeah. So so I came back, and that's when I came to Prudential, which is today Berkshire Hathaway. And I chose this company because of Linda Shearer and Linda Lindenmoyer. I saw that my values aligned with their values. And I saw the difference in agents that came from that company that would come to me as a side agent. They were just a different breed of realtors. They were trained, they were professional, they had great skills with their clients, and that's who I wanted to align myself with. Absolutely. And it's been the perfect fit. So I've been with them since that point in time.
I love it. So that's an awesome just journey through real estate. And it's funny how a lot of times where things are seem uncomfortable and it just ends up stars aligning, and it makes me think about like a quote that I've said in another video. A lot of things in your life are on the greatest things in your life are on the other side of uncomfortable, of being like scared about something or having just an uneasiness about something. So it's a really awesome journey that you've had.
And
you're continuing too. On your website, it says that you've lived from tip to tip and smack dab in the middle of Florida. So how have those moves in Florida and your life experience here made you a resource for people buying and selling in this area?
You know, I think one of the greatest things it has done for me is I get a lot of clients that are looking, that don't know what part of Florida they want to move to, especially after COVID. And we had all these people coming from the Northeast, people coming from California, people coming from, central of the United States. They knew they wanted to be in Florida, but they didn't really know where. Yeah. So my life experience helped me sell our dream of our lifestyle, to be honest with you. It's like, okay, I can tell you what living in a hurricane was like. Yeah. I lived through them in South Florida. I lived through them in the Panhandle, and I haven't had to endure them in Jacksonville. And they trust me. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
Okay, so this girl knows what the different climate changes are. I love talking about Jacksonville gets a little winter snap.
It does.
People don't believe me that it can get down into the 20s and 30s. I'm like, by mid-afternoon, it's in the 60s. Yeah. But we get to wear a sweater, we get to wear boots, we get to wear gloves and fun things, you know. So you have a little bit of variety in our climate.
So before we kind of shift into today's topic of what we were talking about, you had mentioned some of your experiences, but I want to talk about your philanthropic efforts. Because of these experiences, you do work with Alzheimer's research and Dreams Come True and even other foundations. I want to talk about how your connection to those organizations are affecting your approach to life or work or anything else?
Well, I'm a strong faith-based person. And even my grandkids say, Gigi, sharing is caring.
Yeah.
When you're trying to teach them to share toys and things like that, sharing is caring. And I think about, the Sadducees went to Jesus and they were testing him by saying, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. And the second is just as important. It's to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's what philanthropic is about. It's about giving to others.
Yeah.
And I think that when I get to share with other clients that a portion of my commission goes to a foundation like Dreams Come True, that makes them feel like their gift is giving too.
Yeah.
Their gift of selecting me as their agent is doing something as well. So it's like that gift that keeps giving. I feel like we have to be able to search and reach beyond ourselves to others, for others to really feel that you're not self-centered, you're other-centered, and they feel that, they sense that, and they enjoy doing business with you as a result.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. I love that. Now shifting into our topic today of pre-listing conversations. What do you believe is the most crucial part of a pre-listing conversation?
Well, you have to be honest, first and foremost, when you're going into a listing presentation, because people sense what is a genuine person and what is someone that's giving them fluff, right?
Yeah,
it's just saying
absolutely.
what you want to hear. And it's hard at times because you have to say things that maybe that's not what they want to hear, right? That their home is dated, or that their home needs some improvements, or maybe it needs a little love. So I think being honest with them going into that listing presentation is the most critical part. And you've got to be prepared. You have to know your comps. You have to know their community. You have to know those things for them to trust you. People do business with people they like and people they trust.
Absolutely, I agree. So you had mentioned that kind of the history or mentioning somebody's property might be outdated or it needs improvements. When you're discussing that with the seller, what key details are you focusing on, and how is that affecting your strategy for the listing?
Well, the first thing I do when I go into a listing, before we sit down and talk, I ask them to give me a cook's tour of their home. It's helping me develop a rapport. It's helping them see, I'm really interested and I want to know about your home. I want to know what you've done to the home. What improvements have you made? So that way, when we sit down and we can review and look at comps, I'm not going into it blind, just having looked at their foyer, their living room, their kitchen, right? I've seen everything and I know what they've done to the home. There is one customer that I remember, he called me multiple times. He actually was a Toll Brother buyer. And he wanted to replace all the windows in his home because he wanted Andersen windows. And he said, Priscilla, do you think this is a good investment? Do you think it's wise for me to come in and change all the windows in my home? And I said, Dennis, I have to be honest with you. If it's going to give you pleasure and enjoyment to have a heavier duty Andersen window, then that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
But it's not going to bring you a return on your investment.
Gotcha.
Because all the other homes that we're comping are new construction. They've got the newer windows. Granted, they're not Andersen, but you're not going to get that return that you're going to invest. It's a return of pleasure for you, then do it. But as long as you understand that. So sometimes it's those kind of improvements that they've done, they think, oh, I should get that money back. Not necessarily. You're going to make your home more desirable because I have a better feature than the other home. Sometimes those features do bring extra money, right? If you've changed your carpet to hardwood floors, definitely you're going to see the difference. So it's those kind of things that we have those conversations about that help them understand.
I like that. So a lot of sellers do have different motivations and timelines whenever they're trying to sell their home. How are you uncovering why someone wants to sell, and how are you aligning their goals with a marketing strategy that you might recommend?
I try to find that out in my telephone conversation with them before I ever come to meet with them, what their time frame is, what are they looking at. Sometimes they just don't know when is the right time for me to put the house on the market. I had a client call me the other day that said, my husband's getting military orders. We know we're going to have to move at the end of the year, but I don't know when's the right time for us to put the house on the market. Would you come out and talk to us and help us determine what we need to do, what we need to, we have time, and what's the best month to hit. So those things are important. You want to talk to them about, okay, if you have a short window of time and you have to sell the house, then we need to be a little bit more aggressive maybe on our price. Maybe we we list it at the sweet middle spot instead of the top spot.
Yeah.
If you have a little luxury, then maybe I do list it a tad bit higher, knowing we're going to get offers, and you've got the luxury of a little bit of time. So their time frame affects where you're going to price it sometimes as well, and helping them determine what's the best season. Our TPC term that comes, spring is big for us. So sometimes you might want to capitalize on not missing that market when people are coming in for the tour and when they linger right after the tour. If they wait too long, they may miss that market. So those kind of things are important to talk to them about and understand what's their goal. Where do they need to be? When do they need to be there?
I like that a lot. So if a seller has an unrealistic pricing expectation, happens sometimes, but how are you guiding them back to a price point that aligns with market conditions or just a more realistic perspective of what's going on?
It goes back to that honesty.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines with them, when I see them flinching and twisting and not liking the idea of something, maybe even staging their home or painting their home to neutralize it, they don't want to necessarily do the investment of that.
Yeah.
They just, won't somebody else just come in and do what they want to do to it anyway? I have to help them understand the internet is where people are looking. Earlier in my career, people would call us and ask us about where are their properties. Today, they don't call you and ask you. They call you and tell you, I saw this property on the internet on Zillow or on this or on that, and I want to see X, Y, and Z, right? So those pictures are critical.
Absolutely.
And if your first impression is not a good one, they might just flip right over it and go to something else that looks more in line with what they're wanting.
Absolutely.
So I have to help them realize that there are some things they're going to need to do in order to get the best value for their home. And I always tell them, I don't want to have that come to Jesus meeting with you 6 months down the road and we haven't sold your house.
Yeah.
And you're saying to me, well, why didn't you tell me that when you came to do my listing presentation, Priscilla? You said the house looked beautiful. Right? So when I say that to them, it triggers something.
Yes.
Like, okay, she's being honest with me. She doesn't want to have that conversation with me later. I need to listen to this girl. You have to also be knowledgeable. You have to know those communities. You have to know what has sold. You have to help them see, why did this get this price? I mean, it's not a price per square foot measurement that you price your house at. There's lots of things that go into it, and I think that you have to help them understand that. And the house that sold for a higher value sold because they did paint it, because they did stage it, because they did do those important things. So you have to help them make their expectations be realistic with what the market is demanding.
So what tools or technologies are you using during that pre-listing phase? Anything that can help you evaluate a property's potential and then place it competitively on the market?
The best tool that I have that I bring came out of our marketing department.
Yeah.
So I went to the girls and said, I want to do a luxury presentation packet, a little booklet that is specific to me and specific to my career and what I have sold and where I've sold it, and that outlines what is going to come with them, will come with our marketing program to them, and the vast opportunities that Berkshire Hathaway offers to our clients, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not going to sit and read through that whole thing while I'm there, but I tell them, this is something that I'm going to leave with you. I want you to take some time and look at it and read it and compare what we have to offer compared to maybe what other companies are offering. Everybody has a good company. Real estate companies have good marketing programs, but I truly think ours is exceptional. And I think that marketing piece shows it better than anything else. It feels great. It looks great. It aligns with who the Berkshire Hathaway name sign that's going to be in their front yard is.
Yeah.
And it makes them want to be a part of it. So that's my best tool. The other thing I do is I'm prepared. When I go into that listing presentation, I have spent time studying the comps. I've spent time studying their neighborhood, what has happened, their street in particular, if there's been activity there, so that when you go in, you are knowledgeable and you are a person that they understand really does have a pulse on the market, and they trust you.
So, just the final question out of everything that we've talked about today, what is your one tip or strategy that you would give to a new agent or a experienced agent about having a successful pre-listing conversation?
I think that honestly, the best thing you can do is be authentic to who you are. I think when people try to say, oh, this works for them, this works for her, I'm going to try and do it, they come across canned. So you have to kind of take what you learn from each person and then make it yourself, make it your own, so that when you go in, you are authentic, you're real. They trust you. They don't feel like they're talking to a mechanical being, right? Yeah. I think, so you have to really know who you are and know what you have to bring to that seller that's different from what everybody else brings. Yeah. That's one of the things I say to my sellers when I sit down in that listing presentation. I say to them, I realize you're meeting with several agents, and everybody is probably a very good agent that you've selected. I'm not guessing you picked a poor one to interview. Yeah. And they all represent good companies. What you want to know is what sets me apart from these other agents. So let me share with you a little bit about my business model. Yeah. And I go into it. I tell them a little bit of my history, how I got into real estate. I tell them what my success has been with listing and selling homes. I share with them about our relocation department and how we get additional buyers as a result, and we're on the pulse of what's happening in all of Jacksonville. I share with them our marketing materials of how we're going to help with that home. I'm doing all of that in that listing presentation as me, who I am, how I would work with you, so that they know who they're working with, right?
Absolutely. It's like what you were just saying. Everybody's good, but what's going to take you from being seen as good to being seen as exceptional? Correct. What's going to set you apart?
Right. So everybody has to find out for themselves, where do you shine? What is your strength? What do you have to offer that's different than everyone else? And everybody has a story. Yeah. Everybody has a story. Don't be afraid to tell your story. You know, I tell them I'm a 2-time breast cancer survivor. They're shocked. You know, but what it says to them is she's got resilience. This girl overcomes. I tell them I can overcome objections, right? Well, I can overcome obstacles. It's like they believe you. Yeah. So that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be Anita. Don't try to be Elizabeth. Don't try to be our top agents. And try to be yourself. Take our pearls of wisdom and be you. Take them and spin them your way. Make your story. And you'll thrive. You'll do great. Yeah. And really focus on that sphere of influence. That's the most important thing. And it makes real estate more fun, really. Yeah. When you're not having to call a cold lead, when you're actually going in to talk to someone that knows you or has been referred to you by a good friend, they can't wait to meet you. Yeah. And you know what? The whole transaction's a lot more fun and a lot more pleasant because you're not having to prove yourself all the time.
Well, I love it. So that was, an awesome time talking to you. It's a lot of wisdom that you just put out. I think people are going to absolutely love this video. So thank you again for coming on. But we will put Priscilla's all of her information, her social media, her website, so you guys can go check her out more. You can learn a little bit more about her as well, just some stuff that we didn't talk about today. But other than that, we will see you all next week for our next guest. So until then, take care.